Being asked to present an extremely brief essay on my beliefs has, not unexpectedly, caused me to reflect on this subject. I determined two things that made this exercise worth the time. First, I find that I believe in a whole lot of things, more than I ever supposed I did. However, only a few of these have any personal significance. Many of the others may be true enough, but they are not very likely to have any personal bearing on my life. Many more are simply useful for getting around. They are working hypotheses. They might not even be true, but they're useful to believe in. Second, there are a whole myriad of things fitting into all three categories that others say I ought to believe, or insist that I believe. Here I find an impossible variety of subjects under a gamut of guises. The pressure to believe is counterproductive. Rather than belief, skepticism and indifference is the result. I spent a lot of time teaching my children not to believe what they saw on TV. Now I wonder if this hindered their belief in everything, worthy or unworthy. A few years ago, I read a book by John A. Whitson. He was then an apostle, probably best known for his defense of the word of wisdom. I read it with some fascination, not for the content, but for the attitudes it expressed. They were attitudes that made me feel very comfortable. I believed in these things, but somehow I had drifted away from them as authorities told me I ought to believe in faith and obedience to authority. Nothing wrong with that, but it didn't crank me up. Whitson taught that all things are on earth for God's children to study and learn from. I probably feel comfortable with this because this is the approach I learned from my father. The world was our oyster, so to speak. Truth can be found in everything. That which we learn here will be a foundation in the hereafter. There are a few hints of this old attitude found in official talks and writings, but it is far from central in our doctrine. The glory of God as intelligence is no longer the motto of BYU. Rather, it's enter to learn, go forth to serve. Nothing wrong with that either. What does crank me up is the concept that there will be progression in life to come. This is one of the last doctrines taught by Joseph Smith before his martyrdom. Progression implies that we have a purpose here and in the afterlife. To think otherwise strikes me as an ominous idea, barren and stagnant. I find it interesting that this is one of the doctrines that is most repugnant to detractors of the church. It diminishes the omnipotent quality of God, they say, and yes, I know that to a philosopher there are some problems with the concept. I say that belief does not have to be determined only by evidence, but by the emotions as well. Eternal progression feels right to me. I think John A. Whitson would approve. The world is our oyster.